What's going on, guys? I'm Steve. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. If it's your first time stopping by the channel, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't regret it. If you're a returning subscriber, as always, guys, welcome back, and I do appreciate the support. Guys, I did a video earlier today about an update on the Tyree Nichols case, where 3 of the 5 officers, Tadarrius Bean, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith, all were denied the motion to separate themselves from the other 2 officers, Emmett Martin III and Demetrius Haley, which is a good thing, and I spoke about that earlier. But I went back and I looked a little bit at one of the attorneys and the client he's representing and how we got to where everybody wanted to separate from each other. And I came up with something pretty interesting, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Ladies and gentlemen on YouTube, I think them being denied that motion was huge for the 3 officers that tried to disassociate themselves from the other 2, especially Tadarrius Bean. I already said, I think he's the weakest link out of all the officers. And in this video, his attorney, John Perry, had an agenda all along, and I think he talked and exposed himself and his client on what their defense strategy is going to be. And if they do this in court, which I think they'll do, if he did go to trial by himself, it'd be the fastest trial in history. Verdict, where they come up with a verdict. First thing is this. I want to take it back. I'm going to show you a series of videos. And maybe I'm wrong. You guys might see something different. I'm going to show you a series of videos, and I'm going to show you a still shot from the Tyree Nichols incident where he was beaten and his life was taken. When he was at Castlegate, where the camera picked everything up, the corner cam where I stood. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to say 3 things. The first thing is this. John Perry had already had the strategy set up where he wanted to pull Tadarrius Bean away from the other officers. Number 2, he tried to open the avenue for Tadarrius Bean to cooperate if given the chance. And I will show it to you in this video. And number 3, he is very dismissive, and I don't even think he read or watched the whole video for him to say some of the things he said in representation of said client, Tadarrius Bean. So let's go with the first thing. We'll go all the way back to when, what was it, 7 months ago, when the arraignment hearing came, when they first showed the lawyers and they first showed the officers when they had on masks and stuff and they were coming to court for the first time. I'm going to play a couple of excerpts and then we'll come back. The first excerpt I'm going to play for you guys is when they asked them how was the mindset since the incident happened with Tyree Nichols, where he died. How is the mindset and how is Tadarrius Bean basically holding up? This was his response. Check this out.
Officers were just in the courtroom. I think he's talking to one of the attorneys.
Yeah, how is he doing, and how are you prepared to defend him?
Well, I mean, starting out with the notion that he's innocent until proven guilty, which is a rubric of our society in this country, number 1. Number 2, I know that there's been a lot of statements about Mr. Bean in the press over the last, month, and a lot of those statements are misleading about the person that he is. Mr. Bean has been nothing but a respectful, good young man throughout his life. And on that particular night, you look at an isolated incident and try to measure the person. And so there are a lot of statements about him as a person that are just flat out untrue. And you look at the level of involvement of each individual defendant. And in that particular case, he was doing his job, no more, no less. He never struck anybody. He never did anything other than his job.
Did y'all hear that? Go back and look at it and listen closely. He said, if you look at the degree of involvement in the officers involved as a whole, my client just did his job. Basically, he was the only one there that was acting like a police officer. He right there told you he was going to set it up to where he was trying to pull Tadarrius Bean away from the other ones. That tells me two things. Number one, he don't want him involved with the ones that were kicking and punching. Just like he said, all of them together, it's not good for his client, and it makes it hard to defend that. And the other thing is this. If he can pull Tadarrius Bean away from them and have him on a separate trial, he thinks Tadarrius Bean can get off with a 0.2B. The 0.2B is this. I don't think, and I said this before, I don't think he should have talked after that until they got that discovery. He didn't see the last part. He only watched certain parts of that video. He didn't watch the whole thing, because what happened, y'all? Demetrius Haley ran his mouth and even admitted that what? Bean punched Tyree Nichols too. So he trying to separate him from that. And I'm telling you, I don't know how this goes when you got a bunch of them like that, but if they fighting for their lives, now as a collective, they can't really turn against each other like that, because they're all in the same boat and they're going down the river at the same speed. And that's the first part that I wanted to show you. He was trying to set it up the way he could take a deal if it or cooperate. Now watch this second part. They asked him, what did they ask him? Does he think, you know, what is Tadarrius Bean's role in the death of Tyree Nichols? Watch this part.
So what in that video tells us that your client, Tadarrius Bean, is innocent?
Tadarrius Bean, according to the video, was seen apprehending a person after.
Every last one of them beating that man.
Yeah.
That's murder.
Carry on, sir.
You see it like we said. We saw the same thing.
What in that video
murder,
tells us that your client, Tadarrius Bean, is innocent?
Say that once again. I can't hear it because you got people that are part of the press that are saying things.
We've all seen the video. What in that video tells us that your client, Tadarrius Bean,
Tadarrius Bean never touched him in any way, striking him. Period. Tadarrius Bean has the ability, as a law enforcement officer, to make a lawful arrest based off of a call coming in. And so at this time, that's where we're standing right now. That Tadarrius Bean was doing his job at that time, and he never struck him. And there has been no information that we have seen as of right now that indicates that there's any sort of information that we can rely on to say that it's murder.
Did y'all see and hear that? That lets me know that he didn't look at all of the information, or he didn't have all the information present, and he went out on a limb and just opened his mouth because he wanted to make a statement to be seen in front of the camera, because he thought he had this thing in the bag with his client, because he thought that America was keying in on the punching and the kicking and the baton work to the face. Tadarrius Bean didn't do that part at the end. He must have honed in on that last part. Another thing he said, before we get into the whole hitting thing where I put the picture up there, that's a still of it. You know what I'm saying? I'll put the whole video in the description box. Y'all can fast forward. It's almost near the middle of the end, where it shows Justin Smith and Tadarrius Bean hooking off on Tyree Nichols. So that right there let me know he didn't even watch the whole video before he made a statement. I said before, he should have never said that. He should have said no comment and kept it moving. He didn't. He came out there smiling, wanting to be in the limelight. Got to say something to the press. Let them know he's here and he's representing Tadarrius Bean. And you made him look stupid, more stupider than he looked already. Then on top of that, the cherry on the whole Sunday is, oh, he never struck him. Then at the end, what did he say? There's no, and all these defense lawyers are saying this. There's no evidence that says that he died from anything they did. So he just went to the hospital and just gave up the ghost on his own. See the stupidness? This is craziness. Now I'm gonna show you. Moving forward, I'm gonna show you about 2 or 3 weeks ago when they was in court and they was trying to give their statements of why they think each of their clients, the 3 officers, should be, granted permission to have separate trials. This is what his lawyer said. Tadarrius Bean's lawyer, John Perry. This is him talking. I want you to watch how uncomfortable he is saying what he's saying. And if he talks like this in court, it's over. It is over. If he comes with this defense in there, and Tadarrius Bean, it doesn't see right now, he need to get different representation. He deserved to get burned, which he gonna get burned already. But this guy makes me real nervous. And I'm a regular dude. I'm not in the limelight like that. If I seen him talking crazy like that, nah, fam. You gotta change a different strategy. Check it out.
Complex. On behalf of our defendant, Tadarrius Bean, we're stating that we're placed in an awkward position from the gate, in so much that there are 2 different scenes that are involved. The court just talked about, and we've discussed in previous settings, the fact that there are video and that there have been video discoveries that have been tendered, and we've looked at the various videos, and those videos established, as I laid out in the memorandum, that there appeared to have been at least 2 different scenes. The first initial contact scene and then the second scene. That first scene being at Raines and Ross, the second scene being at the Castlegate corner. Your Honor, if you have read the memorandum that was tendered by the state in response to our motions, they seem to have conceded the fact that that first scene in probable cause was correct. And that in and of itself, at least I tender to the court, suggests that they have engaged in a severance already of one of the co-defendants. If that first scene has no probable cause issues, has no issues at all, which of course in their memorandum, that is what they say, that goes in direct, I guess, contravening the statements that have been made sometimes publicly about what they thought was offensive. We're fine with whatever they say publicly, but in the forum that we're before right now, it is essential to look at the scenes respectively. And if you're looking at that scene, those 2 scenes, you have 2 different perspectives of the officers involved. Unlike other severance motions where we're sitting here saying, hey, this person did this bad, this person did X, Y, Z, that was wrong, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the conduct of the officers fit the situation that was involved that day. But what I am saying is that there was a perspective that was created from the first scene that's separate and apart from the perspective of my client, Tadarrius Bean, which would have arrived at that second scene. His perspective had nothing to do with the errant driving of the officer that got behind a car that evidently from the discovery had been driving at an excessive rate of speed, that goes through an intersection that from the time that he cut his blue lights on had driven some 2 miles before it came to stop at the first scene. That officer and the 3 officers that would have been involved on the first scene would have had the opportunity to look at and engage in that particular suspect on that scene. They had the opportunity to note how he was sweating, note how he was doing whatever he was doing inside that car. They also had the opportunity to respect the dangers of that person. Their perspective would have been heightened, a more engaged perspective regarding the suspect. And if you have, in looking at the discovery, it becomes clear why the suspect is acting a certain way. Because through the discovery, we've seen what the suspect had. We see the magic mushrooms, hallucinogens. We know the fact that he had a number of substances in his system. And we also know from that first scene the fact that that particular suspect at that time was not complying with the first 3 officers that engaged it. And so their perspective is different when they arrive to the second scene. Now, Tadarrius Bean only heard over the radio that there was an individual that had been in a conflict on this first scene. based on that, he goes to the second scene.
Guys, I had to stop that for a second because he was going for a while. And I got the important stuff that I wanted you guys to hear. I got one more thing I want to show you, but I'm going to talk about this little excerpt I just put in here real fast. He's still sticking to the point of saying Tadarrius Bean did not strike him. Only thing Tadarrius Bean said is, hey, man, get up, get you some, air, sit up. If you listen to how crazy he sounds, it's like he didn't even have what he wanted to say in order before he said it. I think he was just talking, and I think he got lost up in his words. Because when he first started talking, he would stop and he'd start, his eyes would go up, he'd be thinking and stuff like that. And I'm like, yo, if this guy is winging this, his client is in serious trouble. Another thing is, did you hear Rovon Wells, Tyre Nichols' mother? Did you hear? We all know he had alcohol in the system, weed, hallucinogens, magic mushrooms. She was like, what? Now, for you guys that haven't been keeping up the story, the autopsy report came out, and so did the blood work after Tyre Nichols' death. And it said that he had small trace amounts of THC in his blood, reminiscent of someone that used it 2 days prior to the encounter with the police. It means nothing. I don't know where he's getting his information from, or if he's even half-ass reading the discovery he got. But this guy right here, I wouldn't let him represent me at all. And I don't know, he might be a good lawyer, but I mean, the way he acted, he puts me on skates where I'm like, no. Also, he said, oh, Tadarrius Bean only responded like any officer would at the second scene. We need to separate this and make it a separate trial because he wasn't at the first scene. And I'm going to show you how he threw them officers under the bus. It was a sneak diss. Tadarrius Bean didn't know that he wasn't complying. They would have seen, the officers at the first scene would have seen he was strong, had superhuman strength. They would have seen that he was they would have seen him sweating and all this stuff. And he was, not listening. Tadarrius Bean was at a stop way down the street. He came to show support and help like any good officer would. First of all, that altercation with him on the ground, he didn't start sweating until he ran a mile. So, of course, Tadarrius Bean would run into him when he's sweaty. The other officers wouldn't because he just got pulled out the car. And the fight ensued. He makes no sense with some of the stuff he said. In fact, most of all the stuff he says. Now, I'm going to show you this last part, right? The last part is when he brought up Hempfield, but he wouldn't say his name. But he tried to put Tadarrius Bean on the same level as Preston Hempfield, to where, they exonerated him because he's going to work on the side of the prosecution. He said Tadarrius Bean needs to be exonerated, just like Preston Hempfield, who's trying to get out of that civil suit, so he's cooperating with the prosecutor on the side of Tyre Nichols' family. He tried to put them two together. You let him go. Why you don't let Bean go? Bean is innocent. He came and did police work. The other officers are the ones that, they try to make it like it's a break of communication, like it's somebody else's fault. And he went blindly into this because it was a lack of communication on their part, which made his client look bad like the rest of them. Think about it. This last part of my play, and where he talks about Hempfield, quick 30 seconds, I think, and we'll come back and wrap this thing up. Check it out.
You then say, well, now that we've let one of the defendants go, that we haven't charged him at this point, wasn't even fired from the department until public outcry. But if it's such an issue with severance, why is there a problem with severing Bean, who never struck him, never used any language that would be untoward towards him, never did anything but his job, because he didn't have the perspective of seeing him do all this stuff from the first scene.
Guys, that's all the information that I got on how silly this guy looked. And I'm telling you, when this trial starts, I got my press pass and everything ready. I'll be back down in Memphis. Shout out Memphis. And I'm going to be dead honest with you. The way he's talking and the way he comes off, they don't got a prayer in hell to get him off. I don't know if he's telling Tadarrius Bean, don't worry about it. We got this in the bag. Today's news or last night's news about them all being put together and charged as one, then flew out the window. So I wonder what his defense strategy is now, because he can't go in there and say that with them other officers standing there. What's his name? Not Tadarrius Bean. Damn, I got a mind blank. Demetrius Haley. Demetrius Haley already said you put hands on him. Now you're talking about, oh, they weren't there at that time, but the cameras was, and they caught him right in the act, teeing off on him with Justin Smith when he was on the ground, and they got tired of wrestling with him and got mad and just decided to, in unison, pound cake him before Emmett Martin came in there and sprayed him again. He's talking about, oh, separate both scenes. The first scene is way better than the second scene. So why you want to separate that when you in the fire and the part that invoked the ire of America for justice for Tyree? Don't even make no sense. Either way, man, when I got to get down in, I mean, I'm intrigued by this case. I got to see these guys close up. I mean, for real, I want to see him. I mean, I just want to see what the lawyer do, because the strategy got to change now, because I'm pretty sure he thought by him bringing that up, he had a pretty good chance of that happening with foresight, because 7 months ago, before they even got to the particulars at where he had to put in, hey, we're going to file for separate trial, I think he thought he had this thing in the bag if he could separate Bean from the other two. Well, from the rest of them. The other two lawyers, I think, followed suit with him, and they probably talked amongst each other, because in that video, if you ever go and watch that video where they was doing that hearing that I just showed you guys, I think it's like 30 minutes. They was all laughing and joking and buddy. They must have had the plan already. We'll get our guys separate, and then, you know, it's easy to take and deal with a trial one-on-one, but it's the same trial. The same thing, same video is going to be shown, so it don't matter. Put them all in the boat, let them burn. Stock Market Steve for the Dynamic Reason channel. Guys, leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about the videos I showed you today. And tell me, do you think he got a chance of even getting time off? I don't. And I'm telling you, when this trial date is set, it's going to come up quick, and the city of Memphis trying to get rid of this, get this put behind them as fast as they can. Watch. Don't be surprised if Dwayne Smith's name pop up in this trial, and he might have to appear in court. You know, I mentioned what I mentioned about CJ Davis. We'll see. But as always, like I said, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.